So pupil choice for your part 3, and I'm pretty sure that if you're watching this video and you are building up to your part 3, this is one of the questions that is going round and round in your mind about who you're going to take. Now, it could be that you are pretty certain who you're going to take, because it is possible that you've spent the last few weeks working with them with that proviso that they are going to be your pupil of choice for your part 3. It could be that you're sitting there with a diary full of pupils and being unsure and umming and ahhing between 2 or 3 different pupil types. But let's give you a few suggestions of things to consider that will help you make that choice. Now, I would say there are probably 4 factors that are going to influence your pupil choice. The first one clearly has to be a pupil that is available and committed. So we need to be able to find a pupil that is going to say, yeah, I'm free on Thursday at 2:30 in the afternoon. And of course doesn't regularly let you down and is going to be there for you. I think that is, goes without saying, that is what you are wanting. Now, sometimes we can get lured into that false sense of security with the pupil, and it's not particularly unusual for a pupil to cancel on you last minute for various reasons. You know, sometimes there are things that you just cannot control. You know, they fall down the stairs and break their leg the night before, but it seems that quite regularly there are pupils who suddenly remember an exam they're meant to be at, or a shift changes at work, or they have a childcare issue. So as much as you possibly can, you want to have a pupil who says that they are able to commit and is available for the particular time. Now, even your best committed pupil might have a problem, and therefore it is always worth having a second choice. Now, when I say second choice, I don't mean second best. I don't mean somebody that you're thinking, oh my gosh, my first pupil has let me down, I've got no choice but to take this second pupil, and your second pupil that you're not comfortable with, you're not as happy with. Your second choice pupil needs to be not your second best. It's just a second choice. You need to be just as comfortable, just as capable, just as able to visualize the lesson and to work with that pupil as you would have been with your first choice. If you don't have a second choice, don't feel like you need to take somebody up on the spur of the moment, that somebody lends you, or that you ring up your best mate, or whatever it is that you're going to do to kind of fill in that gap. You are much better off cancelling that first attempt, even at a last minute notice. In fact, at a last minute notice, it's almost more acknowledged by the DVSA that you've got a problem. Telling the examiner that your pupil has let you down and that you don't have the ability to get your second choice there as quickly as you needed to do. You won't lose an attempt, unless, of course, this becomes frequent and they think this is some kind of get out, but you won't lose an attempt, and they will acknowledge the fact that thank you for letting us know. So don't just not turn up, but do make an effort to contact the examiner if you cannot and do not have a pupil who is available. So availability and commitment obviously is your number one. Second one is teamwork. You need to have a pupil that you feel like you are working together with. So the two of you are hand in hand working as a team, and learning takes place because there's this mutual agreement, and the vibes in the car work, and everything seems to just kind of fit when you are with them. Now, the chances are, if you're thinking about your pupil choice and you've got 1 or 2 pupils that you are considering being able to take, it's because you like them, and the chances are they like you as well. And one of the reasons why rapport is good is because whatever is happening in the car is working. Now, this is about the fact that your teaching style is suiting their learning style. That's what's really happening when teamwork works and learning takes place. So here you are with a pupil who responds and reacts to you, and just as importantly, you are able to respond and react to them, and the two of you work as a team. So think about that in terms of your level of rapport with the pupil giving you as much as you give them, and it being a two-way kind of street, that vibe in the car, and learning taking place. So that is your second influencing factor. The third one is capability. Now, when I say capability, you might have the ideal pupil in terms of temperament, in terms of teamwork, in terms of availability, but if they're at a stage in their learning where they're not capable of being taken into town and be put into the environment that they are going to have to perform in, because they're not at that stage in their learning, then it's not going to work. You're going to have a pupil who's going to struggle. Now, the other thing I mean about capability is not just physical capability, but mental capability, the psychology behind the test. And there are, of course, pupils that you may have that, yes, teamwork is great. Yes, learning takes place. Yes, you enjoy their company and they're available, but they're just not going to cope with an examiner in the back of the car. So when I think about some of the pupils that I might specialise in, some of them just wouldn't be able to deal with somebody watching them at that stage of their learning for whatever reasons, be it learning difficulties, be it some other kind of condition they have, or just their character wouldn't be able to cope. So you need to be very aware of a pupil's capability on those two levels, the physical and their mental capability. Now, in terms of their mental capability, their ability to be able to cope with that kind of test environment, if you do think that you have the ideal pupil, and I hope that you will be engaging the uses of a trainer, even if it's just one or two occasions with that pupil, get somebody in the back of that car with the pupil. So be it a trainer, be it another ADI, and get the pupil to feel what it's going to be a little bit like. So you're almost kind of replicating that vibe, and just see whether your pupil falls apart, because I think that is a really important. A pupil falling apart on a part 3 is not necessarily a big deal, because of course it's all about how you rescue the situation and deal with that. But having a curved ball thrown at you at that point is not something that you necessarily want to have, particularly if you've chosen your pupil because you think, hey, this is great, she's going to hold it together for me, and then clearly it doesn't happen. So that's your third consideration. And the fourth one is the reason for the lesson. So the pupil that you take up has to have a need. There needs to be a purpose or a reason for them engaging your services and having a driving lesson. Now, this becomes really relevant when we start thinking about pupil choices, particularly from a full licence point of view. So quite often people will say take a full licence holder for various reasons that might work. There's a big difference between taking up a full licence holder, son, daughter, wife, husband, somebody you know who's going to be there and is capable and is not going to let you down, and saying, well, I'm going to bring up my husband because I did a bit of an assessment drive with him last week and his mirrors are pretty useless. Well, most full licence holders' mirrors are pretty useless. However, is that a reason for a whole lesson? Is that going to demonstrate your knowledge, understanding and ability? Is that going to exploit their knowledge, understanding and ability? So after you fix their mirrors, which might just take 10 minutes, what are you going to spend the rest of the part 3 doing? So just because their mirrors are pretty shoddy isn't necessarily a very good reason for a part 3 lesson. However, if you were going to take up a full licence holder because they were wanting to move from automatic to manual, we then have a purpose. If you're wanting to take up a full licence holder because they had a speeding ticket last month and they have just done a speed awareness course and they're going to bring that knowledge into the car with them, and you're going to look at ways that the newfound knowledge from the speed awareness course is going to prevent them from reoffending, and to allow them the practical skills of not doing the whatever they did before, that would be great. If you were going to take up your son who pranged the car when he parked it in the supermarket yesterday, that's a reason for a lesson. So you can see there's a motive behind it, and that should be your fourth consideration, and rightly so. I think with your provisional licence holders it's a little bit different, because with a provisional licence holder we do almost naturally have that next need that they are needing to gain or to demonstrate or be taught. So particularly for full licence holders. Now, this brings us on to, I guess, pupil choice in terms of their ability. So not just their capability, but their ability. And you might hear people say, take your best pupil, because if you take your best pupil, they're going to only give you one or two things to work on. They're not going to throw those curveballs. There's not going to be a multitude of faults that are building up. So you're going to be able to stay on top of the situation, feel more in control of the situation. A little bit of a caveat to that is that two factors. One, even your best pupil is going to throw you something, or the road situation is going to throw you something that perhaps even your best pupil demonstrates a lack of knowledge, understanding, ability or experience in being able to cope with. And it might be something that you're not necessarily expecting. So even the best people will go giving you something that you hadn't necessarily been ready for. So sometimes better the devil you know. So taking up a pupil who you know is going to commit faults or has a need or a weakness is better, because you're ready for that, than having somebody who then gives you something you think, oh my gosh, what am I meant to do with that? I wasn't expecting that. So you can see that element of surprise that your best pupil might give you might not be in your favour. Second point about taking your best pupil is that the better the pupil is, the better you have to be, because you are there to demonstrate your ability. You're there to justify your existence and to give a worthwhile lesson. So if, for example, you are taking up a pupil who is a full licence holder, who's been driving for the last 25 years, and you're going to go off and do motorway driving with them, well, if you pass a part 3 in that scenario, you've done pretty well, because what have you been doing? What have you been saying? What have you been exploiting? What have you been getting them to do, which absolutely has increased their knowledge, understanding and ability based on where they were at the beginning of the lesson? You must have done something pretty good to pass a part 3. So demonstrating your skills compared to people who's already demonstrating quite a lot of skills, what's that distance like? How much are you going to be able to justify your existence? So be a little bit aware of that. So a few factors to take into account. Have a think about that. And I'm pretty sure that as you mull over your pupil choices, you either absolutely know exactly who you're taking up because you have been growing together, if you like, or with those factors in mind, you can pretty much make a decision. The last thing I'm going to say is it comes down to visualising. When you're sitting here now, visualising your part 3, who can you visualise doing that with? Who can you just feel like you can imagine it working with? And sometimes it has to come down to a bit of a gut instinct.